Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. A handful of Rebellion team members have taken classes at the Center for Continuing Education at the University of Regina, specifically in the areas of leadership and professional development. As our brewery grows, we recognize the need to build up our team. Christopher McKee is an instructor with the center, and today we're going to talk about some of the courses and the impact he sees with his students. So let's get into it. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
How's it going?
It's going. It's good. It's getting springish. We're out of the nice polar vortex and happy to see what's coming.
The big snow ruts have melted. It's kind of like a dust bowl right now.
I'll take the dust bowl for the couple months before they do the streets over snowbanks for sure.
For people who don't know who you are you? And what do you do?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Chris, I'm a born and raised Saskatchewan boy from small town southern Saskatchewan. Come from a mixed centennial family farm, and you know what? I've had 2.5 decades of fortunate experience of working with innovation and business solutions and streamlining and that sort of stuff through private, public sector, through government, through healthcare, through all those places. And that led me into the certificate program at the university there and doing some teaching and just trying to engage leaders at all levels of organizations. And it's kind of been what I've been up to.
When I was reading the work you do and I'm trying to understand it, and I'm dumb. I don't get it. Talk to me like I'm 6. Just break it down for me like I fell off the turnip truck yesterday. What the hell is innovation? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think innovation really, it's just, in our day and age, you see businesses and all types of different industries that just get to a place where they're being outpaced by their competitors, where they used to be a lead in that market, right? So to me, innovation is thinking outside the box. It is looking at your systems different. It's looking at how we do business different, and not just the perceived side of things where we put a couple lines in a drive-through but have the same person talking in the speaker so you know it's not faster, but they lead you to believe that it is. These are those things that, taking a hard look at the paper we use and maybe going electronic with that stuff. And maybe it's just simply a different mindset on how we're going to get out and get a hold of our customers and engage those folks that we want to give her.
When we talk about these kinds of things, when you're talking to students, it still sounds very broad. Is there a concrete thing I can hold in my hand to kind of understand what innovation means?
Yeah, when we're talking about innovation, we're talking about thinking different. I think one of the biggest examples I always used is the surgical wait list in Saskatchewan. It used to be 3 years, now it's 3 months. And that wasn't an injection of billions of dollars to buy new equipment or do things. It's looking at how we do things different. What does our schedules look like? What do our people look like that are doing the work in the right place at the right time, instead of simply doing what we've done for 30 years and up in the expectations too, right? So we go to a hotel. If we go to a hotel and we check in, that's normal. If we go to a hotel and they've got a warm cookie at the thing, now we're a little more excited to go to that hotel because it's like we matter. And the next time they know our name and we get a hot cookie. And then the next time we go, they know our name, we get a hot cookie, and Wednesday night we're having beef supper in the lobby. So it's always taking that up to the next level and really executing on that customer service and on that change management to make sure that we are that lead business, that lead competitor.
I know your primary audience is going to be the people who are thinking about taking your class. What are the kinds of core concepts you want them to walk away with?
Well, I think a few core concepts for sure. One, it doesn't matter what you do in any organization, you're a leader, and people are looking at you to lead and to make change. It doesn't matter. I toured a Boeing factory about 10 years ago. They manufacture airplanes, and I'm not about the Ken and Barbie show to show me all the shiny spots in the factory and stuff like that. But I have conversations with people as we go, and there was a guy that was sweeping the floor down by the assembly wing for the seats. And I said, "Oh, so what do you do here?" And his answer was, "I build airplanes." I mean, it's a revolutionary thing, right? That you're not just the guy that's cleaning up. You are building airplanes. You're part of the bigger picture. And as we go through these courses, that's one of the main things we want to know. That those it's not the C-suite executive that's leading these changes in business. The ones that are leading these changes are those frontline staff, the ones that are the gas in the engine, that are really moving stuff forward when we talk about engaging opportunities and stuff like that. And the skills we learn through this are those, the change management, there's identifying innovation, there's inspiring motivation in staff. It's all these pieces that are integral through the business that are often overlooked because they're not stated on a strategic plan that comes out in February and it hangs on the wall and no one looks at it. These are the tangible skills that leaders at all levels can take away. And the thing that I like about it the most probably is 90% of the people that are going are businesses sending their staff. Every tool that we teach and we deliver through this program, you can use at home, you can use it in the community, you can use it where you volunteer. These are transferable skills that you take with you anywhere. And to some extent, drive you nuts when you're standing in line at Walmart and it's not flowing fast. And you can see that there's a better way to do it. And that sticks with you. That's how you just changes your mindset on how we're going through our days.
So is it the frontline people or the leadership that needs to hear these kinds of messages and learn these lessons?
I think it's important for leaders to know what their staff are learning, right? So if we're going to commit the time and the energy to send the frontline staff to go through this training, I think it's just as important that the leadership and the managers and the supervisors and the executives take that same training. So when the excitement builds, there's not a stopgap there where they don't understand where this excitement's coming from or where these tools are coming from. They've got that understanding and cascade that down to the rest of the organization or business.
Even though we just kind of approach it from a leadership perspective, in the piece that you were talking about in the previous question, one of the thoughts that crossed my mind was it sounded like you were advocating for empowering frontline workers and people who aren't necessarily at the top and giving them a voice to speak up to the ranks above them.
Yeah, absolutely. And using that voice with the same terminology that the leadership would be used to, so that it's oftentimes, and I've had staff in the past that'll come to the office and, that they have a problem and they look to that manager, that supervisor, solve my problem and let's carry on. And then I don't have to have responsibility. Well, it's more about coming with solutions to your problems. But more than that, when you've got an exciting idea, don't just come and say, this takes me a long time, or this takes forever, or this happens all the time. Tons of the tools that we talk about and deal with are measurement and standards. So if I have someone that comes to me and says, this happened 63 times last week, and out of those 63 times, we had defects 80 times. And if we had this new solution or this new software or that means a lot more to me than this happens a lot, because a lot to you, Matt, and a lot to me, and a lot to Jim down the street are a lot of different things. So how do we put those tangibles in place and have a conversation about occurrence and measurement and standards and getting to that whole circle of thought that there's more to the problem than sticking a Band-Aid on it, doing a knee-jerk reaction, and then having that problem pop up again in 3 months.
To me, when I'm looking at the work you're kind of doing, innovation, for a lot of people, if they don't understand the definition of the word and it means a lot of things to different people, Can you give me a concrete example of a business that's innovative that people can look to?
Oh, I think one of the most common innovative businesses that are out there would be Amazon, right? So they're thinking different and they're doing different. When you think about a business in an office, there'd be very few places in Saskatchewan that you have a sleep pod room where you sit in a nice comfy chair, because they've understood and realized that a little bit of downtime and a little bit of calm increases that productivity. What we typically do is we do the standard sit around a table, let's have a meeting, and we're going to talk about things, and then we're going to make a subgroup, and then we're going to have the subgroup go off and report back to the main group. Innovative thinking is thinking outside that box, and you hear innovation all the time everywhere. It's a great buzzword. People want to be innovative. They want to be a leader in the market, and we're going to focus on innovation. But it really dials back for me to those core values of allowing the experts that are doing the work to do it, celebrate the success when they happen, and if they don't, simply fail forward fast and try something else. So it's constant change for the better. We know how we've been doing business for 20 years, and what if we do a little bit better? If it's 2% better, it's 2% better than it was yesterday. If we hit our target of 80% improvement, amazing. But 2% is better than 0%. And the longer that we stay stagnant and don't change, the quicker we're going to become outpaced.
I know from the brewery perspective, from a beer perspective, we're trying to innovate rather quickly, constantly testing new recipes and new flavors, new inputs. I remember, I think it was year 2, we did more than 87 different styles of beer. Our core lineup only has 6 or 7 beers at any given time, but we had iterated that many times. And often our brewers are saying, well, we're going to ferment at this temperature for this batch and do the exact everything the same, except we're going to ferment at a lower temperature on the next batch. And very, very quickly discover just that one variable and what that does to the end product of the beer. And sometimes we make some stinkers, and sometimes we really just knock it out of the park and we win medals with those beers. So is that kind of what you mean? Would that fit with what you're saying with innovation?
200% fits, yeah. And you basically just explained one of the tools that we teach in the course, and that's plan, do, check, act. It's the scientific method of planning a change. So when you go out and your brewers are saying, we're going to do everything the same, except we're going to ferment to this temperature, that's our plan. We're going to go out, we're going to do it. We're going to execute on that beer. We're going to make everything feel out. Then we're going to check, was that what we wanted? You know what? If it wasn't quite up to par, now we're going to make a little tweak. We're going to do that cycle again. If it was a success, we're going to check that all our parameters can be repeated so that we know, yes, we can do it at this temperature yet again. And then we start that cycle all over again. But anywhere through that, if something goes wrong, it's a simple reset. We're not throwing everything away and stop doing what we're doing and stick to our 8 core beers. We're going to keep reiterating. We're going to keep pushing the limit. We're going to keep trying different things until we get that success and that winner. And then we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep trying. And we know, if Rebellion is a great example, if you just stuck with 8 beers and other people are innovating and making different flavors and different texture and hitting different flavors, you're done. And I think that's where lots of times, and even if you look at farming, we do a lot of work on farms and stuff. If we went back to the old way that I did it, with an old 1086 tractor and a 12-foot discer, and I followed the rut of that wheel around the field every time with a 6-inch overlap, it just doesn't exist anymore. Right now we're dealing with millimeters of overlap when we're farming because these inputs are so high. But if we just kept farming the way Chris farmed, it's not going to work. So it's those constant changes. And I think what people get kind of hung up on is they get change fatigue, but we change all the time. The thing is, we change all the time, but we don't recognize it. We don't necessarily write it down and take it to that point where this is where the change happened. This is how it affected me. But we change. We change all the time. And, well, the last 2 years will show us that. how quickly we got to go to an online format where people said forever, well, industry can't go to internet that quick and go on it. Well, we were on Teams within hours of the lockdown. So that's the innovation. It's there, but we just don't unleash it all the time. And we don't monitor that change. We don't recognize the change. We just change.
I guess for this podcast, one of the big changes was I used to record everything in person all the time. And to ask somebody to do a video call was really hit or miss. Nobody could wrap their heads around it. Oh man, getting them to set up a laptop. It was like asking my dad to put the clock timer on the old VCR back in the day. He could never do it. And now when I email people, they're just like, yep, I'll be there in that video call. It's not even a question. It's like the culture completely flipped.
Yeah, and that's just that's our life, right? And even as little thing as a cell phone, how often do we change cell phones for the simple fact that now it recognizes my face? And so it's that constant change, it's that constant churn, and cell phone companies have to be innovative. They have to go through that cycle like Rebellion goes through with their brewing, because if they're not that much better, someone else is grabbing a different phone off a shelf, or they're grabbing a different beer out of the cooler, and you've just lost your opportunity. And everything we do nowadays is service industry. It doesn't matter what area of work you're in a service industry, and customers are impacted, people are impacted, and and especially with social media the way it is today, people know even before you made your mistake. Hundreds of people know this is what happened. So it's staying on top of that and always keeping that market edge.
Who's a good cautionary tale? What's one kind of instance that you hold up and say these people failed to innovate and for a particular reason? Don't do that.
That's a good question. I would say any business that you go into a mall and they've been there for 3 months, and the next time you go to the mall to get your booster juice or your haircut or what it is, and there's paper over the windows of that business, they fail to innovate. It's that simple. It is. We're in a time and place that if you are not blazing into the market, creating your niche, and be able to maximize on the potential of that niche and continually change it and get better, or add new product lines, or get quicker at what you do, or change the atmosphere of the tasting room to meet today's demographic, you're not innovating and you are stagnant. I can't think of one business that if they're doing everything so well that without innovation, they're going to be perfectly fine. I know none.
I guess as relates to my work and what I do, when I very much first started at this company and we said we're going to launch Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we were very deliberate in that, and there were other brewers and businesses that said we're not on Instagram, we're not going to do Twitter, we're not doing that stuff, and they just left it and didn't bother, and we were kind of seen as weirdos. And now everyone is on almost all those platforms, and we've added TikTok and we're added YouTube, and you see these businesses completely reinventing themselves. Or I even looked at Washington Post. They have a TikTok account and it's constantly going viral. Those guys are cranking out content, and to think that the stale or crusty kind of old guys at Washington Post would say, no, we're going to devote some full-time resources to TikTok. That's a big mind jump or innovation leap in my mind.
Well, it absolutely is. And I think the other thing is too, that's the beauty of changing and getting better. We don't have to sit down and have think tanks anymore for weeks at a time to figure out what's that next cutting edge step for us. How are we going to innovate? We can just look. We can benchmark what's happening in the world. And the Washington Post would be a great example. If they saw another media outlet, and maybe it was NBC or whoever it was, that all of a sudden got all they have to do is look over their benchmark and say, we can do that. And you're accelerating your business on someone else's idea. And no, you're not stealing in it as copyright infringement, but all these things you can benchmark. When I worked in government, I would always benchmark private industry, because those people that are in the private industry, if it's flow, for example, through a healthcare facility, I would watch the flow of WestJet. If they don't have the best flow, and Air Canada does down the way, they're going to lose their competitive edge. So they're methodically thinking about, at the end of the day, we are spending more money and getting less out of it if we don't innovate. Well, in government, why wouldn't we do those same practices? No, we're not shelling out the money out of a coffer somewhere. These are public funds. So let's steal the ideas, shamelessly steal them from private industry and use them. We can look all the way around us, and it doesn't even have to be our product or our market that we can shamelessly steal the idea and accelerate in a different market without having to create your own social media platform. Simply use what's there. But it's taking that time and making sure that, just like you explained in your brewing process, don't change 18 things in that product line, have it be successful, and then wonder, which change was it that made that perfect? So we don't measure, and we don't have the standards and the tools to do that. We make 8 changes, and even if it was a fail, 7 of those might have been beauty. But we don't know which one of those 7 because we spun all the dials at the same time. And yeah, look around you. Look at, if you're in the brewing business, look at the hospitality business in a hotel, and you could steal tips and tricks of innovation that don't necessarily have to come from that same market.
I mean, we looked at the rise of seltzer, and we said, holy, this is capturing a huge slice of the marketplace. And then we asked, is it affecting craft beer? Are craft beer drinkers, are beer drinkers in general, dropping their beer and picking up seltzer instead? And what we quickly learned was very, very small impact of seltzer on beer sales for craft. But when it comes to the big guys, the big brewers who are making those light lagers, very bubbly, effervescent, crisp, easy drinking stuff, they were getting rocked by the rise of seltzers. One of the things we kind of said was, well, let's capture some of the flavor profile and the experience and the joie de vivre of a seltzer, but make a beer with it. And we started rolling out these light fruit sours, and they kind of hit that same demo of people who are chasing that little bit of flavor. It's not as heavy, it's lighter, but it's still a different kind of experience from your standard beer. And it's been a monster success. We cannot keep up with the level of demand for these fruit sours. And when we look to these customers, we see a lot of overlap between that and the seltzer game.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things you hit on right there is, what is the voice of our customer? One of the methodologies that we look at is, how do we really figure out what are our customer? Because I'm not looking from a oil change place, I'm not looking for paint matching, right? So the voice of my customer, that speed lube, is going to be oil changes, maybe some filters, but they want quick and they want fast. I'm not Jiffy Lube. If someone wants to do the old way without innovating, they drop their car off at a dealership, they leave it there for 5 hours, they get a phone call 5 hours later, they go pick up their car. It costs the same amount of money. They didn't get to sit in their car. They didn't get a coffee. They didn't get to see who was working on their car, but you got the same outcome. So that oil change customer is making a choice. Do I want fast and quick for the same price? Or maybe I just want to go to the dealership, and maybe they're going to give my vehicle a once over, and then they're going to look at the paint chip and they're going to look at something bigger in the picture, but the outcome's the same. So if I'm going to look at innovating, I'm going to look at those two for oil changes. I'm not going to go look at a body shop to figure out, well, maybe they can start changing oil, right? So understanding your customer, and really the only one that can determine quality is the people that are buying the product. The customer that is throwing money out of their pocket, that's who defines quality. I can come in, I could make a little, shoddy brewery in my house and make some really stale beer, and it would be terrible, and no one would want to drink. And I could think it was delicious, but it's who's consuming that after that has to define what that quality is. And if we can harness what our customers are looking for and then drive those changes to hit that market, that's what's keeping us on top.
I love that you just said that because we have a little unofficial mantra at the brewery. Would you drink it twice? It's not enough to have one pint. It's, would you go back for a second? And if the answer is no, it's like, frick, we're missing out on that $1 because we know we can get you to buy two if it's good enough to buy two.
Well, and I'm that guy that I'm going to try a flight. I'm going to go in and I'm going to get 8. I know out of that flight, there'll be one. And I'm going to pick that one, and that'll be what I'm having for the night. But there's always, and I may not even know that there's this gem over here that I never would have picked up because I'd go back to my standard. Here's what I like. That's what I'm going to stick with. But it's about thinking different, and how do we really leverage what that great product is at all times, not just in the summer, not just maybe in the fall. How do we hit that year round, and how do we make sure that we're on the top of our game all the time? Because you've got people that'll come out with, seasonal drinks. Well, that's awesome, but you've got a season. How do we make these year-round drinks that people want to consume all the time, or services that are out there that are not just swapping out winter tires, right? How do we make sure that we're doing their summer tires, their winter tires, their oil changes, their mechanical, and all of it? Because simply flipping tires won't keep my doors open.
Right. So when I walk into the dealership, they've got a little bit of a coffee station and a muffin, and hey, let's throw in a wash. You can get a wash for an extra $25. We'll rotate your tires, all those little extras. Oh, and get a hat.
Yeah. So that $80 hat that you got, and then you think too, if you're even just back to a car situation, if you go in and take your car into an auto body shop to get scratches done, but they detail your entire vehicle and they don't charge you for it, what sticks in your head? That extra, that warm cookie, that detail, that Tuesday night supper, and that's what makes you want to go back. They may have done not even the best body work, but they were friendly and they detailed your car, and they went a little step ahead because they've probably talked to their customer base, and what they've said is, what would make this better? Detail my car. Good. No, we probably just got 10 more people through the door because of that one person that we detailed. It's innovation. It's just a one little step more.
I love that you said previously, steal shamelessly from other people's ideas. Our guys travel the States. We're looking at market trends through the Brewers Association from their economists. And 3 or 4 years ago, Mark was saying fruit sours, fruit beers are going to be huge. It's just going to take some time. And we were iterating 4 years ago, and I was like, I don't know about these fruit things. I guess, I guess it might be a thing. And now it's a monster. 30% of our beer sales at any given time are fruit sours. It's crazy. And he just stole that from what he saw happening in the States. It was like his little crystal ball, and he figured it out.
A buddy of mine travels to Thailand all the time. He's over there about 3-4 months a year, and he's basically a gypsy. That's what he is. And he came back about, I think it was 6-7 years ago, and he's always trying to make this, like, I'm going to make the quick buck. But he came back and he said, Thrasher clothing is going to go out with a bang. And they've got it right now in Thailand. It's going to be crazy. And everyone laughs. I'm like, whatever. You don't see a 14-year-old kid on the street right now. If you walk by 10, 8 of them are wearing a Thrasher hoodie today. And if you would have thought a little bit ahead and got 17 sea cans brought over with Thrasher clothing and put them in a parking lot, it's going to explode. It's going to get popular. And that's where it is. It's always picking those things out, all the time and taking a look and thinking to yourself, how can I adapt that into my business model? And if not, great idea, we gave it a whirl, it didn't work. We're going to celebrate that you spoke up and you took that leap, and we're going to move on and look for the next idea. Because as soon as you go back to that old model of business, that everyone focuses on a budget, here's what we got. Oh, I've got this great idea. It's going to be super good. And the manager goes, no. 2 weeks later, someone's really excited. Oh, I've got this good. No, you don't get any more ideas. The culture's gone. And that person is coming to put in their shift and they're done. You haven't inspired anything. You haven't motivated anyone. You have not led to organizational innovation. You've stalemated the ideas. And now you're hoping, as the CEO, that you're brilliant because you've extinguished all those fires throughout. So you better hope you've got a great idea in there somewhere that's going to keep you going.
That's I love that insight. You don't want to extinguish the flame, that passion within your crew. And how do you keep it kindled, right? For us, it was getting together as a crew and having a beer tasting with all the staff and imagining what all the potential flavors could be. We've kind of lost that over the last 2 years because we couldn't physically get together. It's been really frustrating. But I love that you're piecing these ideas together. Obviously, that's why you teach the thing. How long does it take to go through these courses with your crew?
It's anywhere from about 4 months. If you want to dive in and get through those 7 courses, you can do it in 4 months. You can take up to 3 years. We strategically did it that you take one, there's a lull before the next course, so that we've all been to that conference where you're super pumped on the weekend and everything is amazing, and Monday by noon it's gone because you're back to the same old. So we left the space in between so that you can use the tools and then bring questions back. So you know what? You have these 6 ideas, you have these 6 tools, 3 of them worked. I don't understand how these 3 apply. Now we've got another 14 hours to piece them into the model. And really, you could walk through these courses, start a project or an idea, walk through the entire course line and the modules, and your project is complete at the end. So not only are you learning, you get to complete a project in your workspace at the same time. So it's a double return on investment. You're learning new skills and tools. You're using them constantly over a period of time, so the learn, do model, and you're executing on a project or an innovative idea that you may not have had time to do before.
I know Vanessa and Steph have taken these classes. They've talked about how much difference it's made. I personally see them executing on the lessons they've learned from these classes, and I respect the change that has happened. I see how strong it's made our team, how much more resilient we are. If somebody's listening to this pod and they're kind of chewing over the ideas, they're interested in learning more about the work you do, where should they go? Plug your links, man.
Super easy. nomore.ca takes you right to the U of R continuing education piece. They have tons and tons of offerings through there. The organizational innovation certificate's only one of them. Tons of ways to grow. Don't stop learning. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I've been doing this stuff for, like I said, probably over 2 decades. Every single project, every class that I teach, I learn from it. Because everyone that walks through that door has different experiences. They have different things that they've seen. And this stuff is contagious. When you put someone in a room, in a classroom, like those people that you've taken, that energy is contagious to other people without even going to the course. And if all you do is send one person and that energy affected 5, imagine the culture everywhere of just that radiant energy, excited to come to work. It's not the Monday morning blues. It's Monday morning, what are we going to change this week? As opposed to, here we go again. It's that culture shift, that's all.
Chris, man, I want to thank you for your time today.
Thanks for taking the time. This was fun.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on the brand new Facebook group page, The Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm going to include links to all things that Chris mentioned. Be sure to check it out in the show notes. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province, and you can find them at saskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untappd so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.